What's happening, party people? Welcome to Punchboard Party. My name is Daniel and this is Hot Take, where I take a look at the top 10 trending games on Board Game Geek today and I talk about why they're trending, what I think about them, and other neat things about the games that have emerged over the last week. This week we saw a big change from last week's video because of the Spiel des Jahres and Kenner Spiel des Jahres nominees that were made. So we saw Adventures of Robin Hood, Micro Macro, Paleo, Fantasy Realms all jump onto the top 10 and slide off or stay on. We'll talk about some of them today. We also saw a lot of action from Frosthaven because of Kickstarter update number 80 that Isaac Childress made that created a lot of controversy around cultural sensitivity. So Isaac has hired someone whose job it is to make sure the Frosthaven is inviting and accessible to all people. And so he doesn't want anything in his game that might make people feel isolated because of their own culture or identity or what have you. So we know this is a sensitive topic for a lot of people, and so on Board Game Geek, the conversation kind of just evolved like it normally does into people making accusations about other people and comments about not understanding why someone could think this way or that way. And so just lots of conversation throughout the week about that announcement from Isaac and its implications and that kind of thing. But now today it's dropped off the top 10, so we're not going to talk about the game specifically, but I hope we get a chance to in the future because it looks really cool. Now getting into the top 10, we're starting with number 1, and it is Destinies. It's back up in the top slot. It went down for a couple days to make room for Fantasy Realms. We'll talk about that next. But Destinies is this story-driven, app-based, competitive board game. Usually these style of games are cooperative, where you explore a world and uncover all sorts of story beats and narrative together as a team, and it's really immersive that way. And it really excites me that this game is competitive because you don't usually get that in this style of game. The other reason that this is moving up the list and not down slowly is because reviews are starting to come out. And Dice Tower did their Foursquare review of it and it was very positive. All 4 guys gave it scores between 8.5 and 9.5. So people are really enjoying this game. A small YouTube channel that I recommend to you that I really enjoy, Foster the Meeple, they put up a post on Instagram about getting this to the table and how it reminded them of why they fell in love with board games to begin with. So not everyone is loving it, but I think the majority of people are loving it. And so I think it's gonna stay up in the top 10 here for a while. But as for me, I'm excited to get my hands on it and get it to the table. Coming in next is Fantasy Realms. I was surprised by this, that this is getting so much attention right now, but it's because it was nominated for the Kenner Spiel des Jahres nominee. This is a light filler game where you're just trying to get a combination of cards in your hand that combine together really well. So there's gonna be cards that are gonna get you points for being with specific cards or lose you points for being with specific cards. And so on your turn, you are just drawing a card and playing a card, trying to make your hand as perfectly synergistic as you can to make the most victory points. The thing that I'm finding really interesting is that with Red Rising reviews coming out, Fantasy Realms is getting a lot more attention as well because it is the inspiration to Red Rising. And a lot of people are saying that they just prefer Fantasy Realms to Red Rising. The guys from the Dice Tower also reviewed Red Rising, and those who played Fantasy Realms say that they prefer Fantasy Realms. So that's kind of the narrative right now, is that Red Rising is good, but it's not sticking around, whereas Fantasy Realms does a similar thing, but doesn't outstay as welcome, so I prefer that. For my money, I prefer Red Rising. I like the additions it adds. I like the meatier decisions. I like that I don't have to rely on the cards in my hand alone, that I can use elements on the board to increase my victory points. So for me, I'm sticking with Red Rising over Fantasy Realms. I'm kind of over Fantasy Realms, but I can get why people like it, and I think you should definitely try it out if you haven't. Number 3 on the list is the Goonies Never Say Die. If you want to check out all about that game, I made a video about it this past week, so check that out. My one regret about that video is I didn't make my criticisms about what I'm seeing around this game clear. I think the fact that this game is one versus many is a detriment to the game. We're in a world where cooperative play is so streamlined now, where either a deck of cards or an app can really simulate another player at the table really well. And so I don't think we need to be relying on one person being taken out of the cooperative experience to be the one to make all the other players' day worse. I just don't think we need to do that to players. I think we can keep people together. So that's the major thing that makes me not excited about this game. But let me know what you think about one versus many games. Do you think that that model still has room in the hobby, or do you think we can get around having to do that in all sorts of different creative ways? Let me know down below. Clocking in at number 4, Lost Ruins of Arnac, another Kenner Spiel des Jahres nominee. I think this is going to keep bumping up the list as well because of the announcement of a solo campaign that is free to print and play. You can just go to their website and find the rule book and find the app that will deal with all the new cards that are introduced in this campaign style game. Basically what the game is it's a solo mode that you get out of the box, and it adds kind of narrative experiences to the solo play. So each narrative that you play, you're going to put different cards out on the board in different locations. And so what it does is it just gives you more focus in your solo play, where now you're just trying to get to a certain location to find that crashed plane, or maybe you're going to a particular ancient site because it ties into the story that you're playing out. So while solo modes are not for me and I'm not excited about this, I want to put this on your radar because this might be something that you'll find very exciting and enjoyable. So still on the list at number 5 is Sleeping Gods. I think this is going to be around for a long time because this is a huge campaign game. So people who are playing it are playing this game for a long time, because this is a game that's just this huge, amazing, overarching story, and you just save your game and then pick it up where you left off. So people are going to be playing this for a long time and have lots of questions as they encounter certain monsters, creatures, events, these kinds of things. I mentioned in my last video that my excitement about this game and getting it to the table is cooling, and it's still doing that more and more. My big deterrent now is that this game is a beast to set up and to tear down. Now, while I know that this is one of the best stories that you're ever going to find in board gaming right now, I don't know if it's worth the effort lugging it out, slamming it on the table every time I want to play. Setup time has always been a big factor for me of whether I get a game to the table frequently or not. So again, losing interest slowly but surely on Sleeping Gods. Now another big thematic game is coming in at number 6. This is Nemesis. This game has been around for a while and people love it. And it is trending now on Board Game Geek because people's new Kickstarters with the expansion are arriving to them. So people are playing this anew and fresh and having lots of questions about some of the nuanced rules of the game. Nemesis is the best aliens themed game that you're going to find in board gaming today, and it's not actually an aliens IP, but it captures that theme beautifully. Your crew members on the ship and something has gone terribly wrong, and there are these evil alien creatures everywhere, and you are trying to restore ship's engines, get things working again, go back into cryo sleep, and hopefully make it to Earth without being redirected or rerouted or what have you. One thing that gets me really excited about this game is the hidden roles that you receive, where sometimes you could be playing this game in a fully cooperative nature, where you just want to be successful at getting back to Earth and you don't care what happens to the other players, you're happy to work with them. But other roles have you intentionally being the only one to survive, or making sure that a particular player does not survive the game. So there's going to be this constant tension during the game that can you trust people or not, which is always something that's fantastic in games. And I'm excited to see when I finally get this to the table if I enjoy it as much as I think I will, as far as just the thematic experience goes. Adventures of Robin Hood is at number 7, and this was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres nominee, so that's Family Game of the Year, and that confuses me a bit. I don't know if this really belongs in the Family Game of the Year category. I mean, it looks like it's fairly complex in terms of setup and getting people around the table. It's a story-driven campaign-style game where the game board is almost like an advent calendar, where you'll go to certain locations and uncover tiles, and then you'll reveal either characters that you can talk to or items that you can pick up, and those kind of send you in different directions down narrative paths. The standout thing about this game that I already mentioned is this advent calendar style of exploration that you'll be participating as you play this game. And there have been questions about the replayable nature of this game in different scenarios. So if you uncover a particular tile, isn't that something you've done before? So don't you already know what that's going to reveal? And so does that spoil the subsequent narratives, or is that okay? And Michael Menzel, the designer, answers some of these questions, and basically the picture he's painting is that while you're going to be uncovering similar tiles and revealing similar characters that you've encountered before, what he hopes is it creates this atmosphere of familiarity where you know this town, you know these people, so you know if you go to this person, you know the kind of advice that you're going to get, or the sort of experience that you're going to have if you go to this particular area. And while the narrative is going to change the details about what that thing does or what those people say, you're still going to get a feel for, oh, I know what this person is all about, so I'm kind of going to go for them because I like their style. So I'm excited that the way that you uncover things in this game is going to lend itself to sort of this familiarity or homey experience as you play through the different campaigns of this game. So I'm looking forward to this. We don't know when we're getting it in North America, but I am losing my patience. So the question that comes up with a game like Robin Hood is the replayable nature of it. If you're playing through a campaign style, will it eventually just end up sitting on your shelf, not being able to be replayed? So what do you think in the comments down below about campaign style games? Do you think that games like this are worth the money based on the amount of experience that you get out of the box and how many times you actually play the game? Do you wish that games like this were more replayable after you finish the campaign? Do you think that works? Do you think that's lame? Let me know in the comments down below what you think about the replayable nature of campaign style games. Next is Dune at number 8, still just breaking necks and cashing checks. Dune Imperium, people are loving it, playing it a lot. Not much more I can say about this game, although there was an interesting discussion on Board Game Geek regarding the point scoring in this game. So the score tracker only goes to 12, and the game essentially is a race to 10 points, and that triggers endgame. And then if players get a few extra points at the end of the game and secure the victory that way, that's fine. But people were talking, can you get more points than 12 in the game? And surely you can. So players have gotten 14 points. I know my buddy Curtis, when we played, he got 13 or 14 points. So why I wanted to bring this up is that one of the things that I love about the game is this race to 10 points, because it creates this feeling of scarcity about point acquisition. And it's not the points are flying at you all the time. So every point feels so rewarding, and the effort you put into getting points is just higher than you normally would, because a couple more points than your opponent secures you the victory. And when people score more points than are on the actual score track, for me it kind of diminishes that tension of the 10 points. It's like less about the 10 points because now I know that people can actually score 14 fairly easily and regularly. So while it's not a big deal, it just kind of breaks some of the allure of the race to 10 points. So number 9 on the hotness, it's coming to Kickstarter, I think on the 27th of May, don't quote me exactly on that, but is coming soon to Kickstarter. This is The Witcher Old World. So this is one that I've been excited about, interested in, curious about. This doesn't have to do with Geralt of Rivia. This is just older characters in the Witcher universe doing their monster hunting thing. I am so pleased that this game is what it is. I thought that it was going to be another big narrative-driven minis on a map game where you're just kind of slogging through dungeon style around this Witcher universe. But really what it's looking like is a Lost Ruins of Arnac, Dune Imperium, medium weight, deck building strategy game. Yes, there are narrative elements, there are narrative cards that give you encounter choices and experiences, but by and large it looks like the core mechanic is this deck building and card chaining that you're going to be doing to defeating different monsters and getting victory points that way in the game. You're also going to have an opportunity to rival against other Witchers, the other players, and fight them in battles, kind of putting your deck that you've been crafting throughout the game against their deck that they've been crafting about the game, and seeing who has been making the most streamlined deck throughout the game. So that's a cool wrinkle to the whole thing. So I am looking forward to trying this out. I don't know if I'm going to back it or not. I don't really back a lot of Kickstarter games. I'm very much looking forward to The Witcher Old World. Make sure that you back it if you tend to back games. Just give them your support. And finally, number 10 is Oath. This sucker is getting all sorts of attention. It's always on the hotness. It is designed by Root and PAX Premier designer. And you know what? This game for me is just not something that I'm interested in much. Basically what's happening is this kind of this big war style game, a little abstracted, where you have certain roles that you are playing, and there's one role that's kind of set up to win the game, and they have scoring conditions, area control conditions, and each game you choose one of the 4, and if they accomplish that win condition, they win the game. And then another player might be what's called a citizen, and so they win if the head honcho wins. But then there's also a secondary win condition, and so they win alone if they fulfill that win condition. And then there's the exile character, and they have a different win condition based on these other cards that they draw into their play area that gives them choice of a win condition. Really, all things considered, it looks like a really kind of nuanced and obtuse area majority game, but that people are really enjoying. So I'm not excited about it. I didn't enjoy Root myself, so I'm not all hyped about it, but a lot of people are loving it. Now granted, people are complaining about the fact that the rules are really hard to get into and understand, and there's a lot of complexity there under the surface that are keeping people from enjoying this game to the full extent. So I think that's where I fall. I'm just not interested because of those complaints. But you know what? If you like Root, PAX Premier, then you owe yourself to try this out. But again, not a game that's really speaking to me. There we have it, party people. Those are the top 10 trending games on Board Game Geek. What do you think? Let me know down below what games are popping out to you that you really want to get your hands on, that you cannot wait for, games that you've played that are on this list, and weigh in about them. So if you enjoyed this content, or you enjoy other content that's on the channel, maybe my reviews, or maybe my more in-depth news bulletins about other games, then please subscribe to the channel. I just love engaging with you guys in the comments down below, so keep that up. And until next time, party people, have the best day.